Plato's philosophy, articulated through his dialogues and teachings, has left an indelible mark on Western thought, including the development of early Christian theology. Central to his philosophy are the theory of forms, the duality of the soul, and his ideas on ethics and metaphysics, all of which resonated with early Christian thinkers. These elements provided a framework for interpreting Christian doctrine in philosophical terms and helped shape theological concepts that became foundational to Christianity. One of Plato's most influential ideas is his theory of forms, which posits that beyond the physical world lies a realm of perfect, unchanging archetypes or ideals. These forms are the ultimate reality, while the material world is a mere shadow or imitation of this higher truth. For example, objects like a tree or a chair are imperfect representations of the form of tree or chair in the abstract realm. Early Christians found this concept particularly useful in articulating their understanding of God and divine truths. The notion of a perfect, transcendent reality harmonized with the Christian belief in a perfect and eternal God who exists beyond the material world. For instance, St. Augustine, a pivotal figure in early Christian theology, was heavily influenced by Platonism. Augustine interpreted the forms as ideas in the mind of God, thus integrating Plato's metaphysics into a Christian framework. In this way, Plato's forms helped Christians conceptualize the divine as the source of all truth, goodness, and beauty. The theory of forms also provided a philosophical basis for understanding Christ as the Logos, or divine reason, described in the Gospel of John. The Logos, as the organizing principle of the universe, mirrors Plato's notion of a transcendent order underpinning reality. This alignment made Platonic thought a valuable tool for early Christians seeking to explain their faith to a Greco-Roman audience familiar with Platonic philosophy. Plato's understanding of the soul further influenced early Christian thought. In works like the Phaedo and the Republic, Plato describes the soul as immortal and distinct from the body. He emphasizes the soul's higher nature, portraying it as the rational and divine part of human existence that seeks truth and wisdom. The body, on the other hand, is associated with the material world and seen as a source of temptation and distraction. This dualistic view of human nature resonated deeply with early Christian theology, particularly in its emphasis on the immortality of the soul and the tension between spiritual and physical realms. The Apostle Paul, for example, writes extensively about the struggle between the flesh and the spirit, a theme that echoes Platonic dualism. Christians adopted and adapted this framework to underscore the moral and spiritual challenges of earthly life, emphasizing the need to transcend bodily desires in pursuit of a higher, divine calling. Plato's vision of the soul's ascent to the realm of the forms also paralleled Christian notions of salvation and the afterlife. Just as Plato describes the soul's journey toward the good, Christians envisioned the soul's journey toward God. The idea that the soul's true home is not in the material world, but in a transcendent reality, provided a compelling philosophical basis for Christian teachings about heaven and eternal life. Plato's ethical philosophy, particularly his focus on virtue as the foundation of a good life, also influenced early Christian thought. In the Republic, Plato outlines his vision of a just individual and a just society, arguing that justice arises from the proper ordering of the soul's three parts: reason, spirit, and appetite. Virtue, for Plato, is achieved when reason governs the soul, ensuring harmony and alignment with the ultimate good. Early Christians adopted this emphasis on virtue but reinterpreted it in light of Christian doctrine. For example, the four cardinal virtues of Plato's philosophy, prudence, courage, temperance, and justice, were integrated into Christian moral teaching and complemented by the theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity. Church fathers like Augustine and Ambrose emphasized the importance of aligning one's life with divine will, drawing on Platonic ideas about the soul's alignment with the good. Moreover, Plato's concept of the philosopher king who governs with wisdom and seeks the welfare of the community found echoes in early Christian teachings about spiritual leadership. Bishops and other leaders were expected to embody wisdom and virtue, guiding their communities toward righteousness and salvation. Plato's cosmological ideas, particularly as expressed in the Timaeus, also influenced early Christian interpretations of creation. In this dialogue, Plato describes a divine craftsman, or demiurge, who shapes the material world based on the forms. While early Christians rejected certain aspects of Platonic cosmology, such as the notion of the demiurge as a subordinate deity, they embraced the idea of a rational and purposeful creation. The opening of the Gospel of John, which proclaims that in the beginning was the Word, Logos, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, reflects this synthesis of Platonic and Christian thought. The Logos, as both the creative principle and the source of order in the universe, bridges Platonic philosophy and Christian theology. This blending of ideas allowed early Christians to articulate their belief in a rational, loving creator who brought the universe into existence. While Plato's philosophy provided valuable tools for early Christian thinkers, there were also significant points of divergence. For instance, Christians rejected Plato's belief in the pre-existence of the soul, as it conflicted with the biblical understanding of creation and the uniqueness of each human being. Similarly, the Christian doctrine of the resurrection of the body stood in stark contrast to Plato's view of the body as a hindrance to the soul's ascent. Despite these differences, the overarching influence of Platonic thought on early Christianity is undeniable. Through figures like Augustine, Platonic ideas were reinterpreted and woven into the fabric of Christian theology, providing a philosophical foundation for exploring questions about God, the soul, and the nature of reality. Plato's philosophy profoundly influenced early Christian thought, offering a conceptual framework that helped shape theological doctrines and ethical teachings. His theory of forms provided a model for understanding divine perfection, while his dualistic view of the soul resonated with Christian beliefs about the spiritual and material realms. Platonic ethics and cosmology further enriched Christian understandings of virtue, creation, and leadership. By engaging with Plato's ideas, early Christians were able to articulate their faith in terms that resonated with the intellectual traditions of the Greco-Roman world. This synthesis of Platonic philosophy and Christian theology laid the groundwork for the rich intellectual tradition of the Christian Church, demonstrating the enduring relevance of Plato's thought in the development of Western civilization.